Hi, and welcome back to another rapid fire record recommendations video. I'm your host, Lance Barisi, owner of Permanent Records and the Permanent Records Roadhouse in sunny Southern California, where it's nice and toasty this week. Summer has finally arrived here. I know it's been everywhere already, but it was pretty mellow here for the first part of the summer, and it's finally starting to heat up, and so are the recent arrivals, bins. And I'm here to show you some of my favorite records out of these bins. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty on these titles. I'm just going to share them with you, a little bit of detail, just to pique your interest and whet your appetite, if you will. So let's get right into it. Curtis Knight. This is Curtis Knight and Tribe, Waiting at the Crossroads. This is a really cool double LP from 1972. Including a bunch of the material that he released as Curtis Knight Zeus. His catalog is a little confusing, but all you need to know is Curtis Knight came up in the Harlem R&B scene in the 60s. He had Jimi Hendrix, a very, very young Jimi Hendrix in his group back in the day. Jimi Hendrix broke off, went to England, became the Jimi Hendrix that we all know and love. And when Jimi Hendrix passed away, Curtis Knight ended up moving to England and doing the Curtis Knight Zeus thing and touring over there as more of a psychedelic funk rock group. Anyway, this record seems to have some of the tracks from the Curtis Knight Zeus albums and other stuff that's not on there. All you need to know is this thing smokes. Just go listen to the first track off this thing. It's called Can You Spare Change? That cut is super laid back and funky. Almost has like a Dadawa, vaguely reggae-ish vibe to it. Super, super chill. But the rest of it is like way more up-tempo for the most part. Psychedelic funk, if you will. Curtis Knight and Tribe. You got to check out the Curtis Knight 70s recordings. They're absolutely amazing and do not get enough attention, in my opinion. Also from the 70s, we have another Omega album. I featured another Omega album in a previous video. I think it was a different one anyway. Almost all of Omega's records are good, especially up to the mid to late 70s. This one I think is from the mid 70s. It's great. You should definitely check them out. Everyone in Hungary knows who Omega is. Very few people outside of Hungary are familiar, especially outside of Europe. Let's just say very few Americans are familiar with Omega, and they absolutely should be. This band is massive over there for good reason. This is really, really cool mid-70s hard rock. Slightly psych prog touches here, slight prog and psych touches here and there, but well worth your attention. Go check out that album when you have a moment. Sonic Youth, Bad Moon Rising. This is a pretty early album by Sonic Youth, originally on Homestead, I believe, Blastverse in the UK. This album's absolutely amazing. Brave Men Run is on here. Man, Death Valley 69, that's a classic Sonic Youth track. If you're not familiar with the early Sonic Youth stuff, they went through a lot of different phases and had a lot of different styles before they became the alternative rock behemoth that we all know and love for Daydream Nation and Washing Machine and Dirty and Goo and stuff like that. Absolutely amazing. I'm a die-hard Sonic Youth fan. I was once trying to be a completist with their catalog and I gave up on that, but that album's essential. This is a total classic from the 80s. This is a wild one. Everybody knows Blister in the Sun, but this whole album is really good. Violent Femmes were not a one-hit wonder. They were barely even had a hit. Not until many years after this album was released did Blister in the Sun get featured on the Singles soundtrack, I believe. And that's what propelled them into the limelight and why we all know and love the Violent Femmes now. They were absolutely amazing, and I'm so glad they finally got the attention that they deserved. This self-titled debut is a must-own, in my opinion. And another must-own, and for different reasons, is this Scott Walker album, A Loner. Absolutely amazing loner folk stuff. Kind of psychedelic, a little Baroque at times. Scott Walker's got pipes, man. Absolutely amazing. And this is a white label promo of the US original pressing. Here's some Cheap Heat. If you don't already know Rock On, the hit Rock On by David Essex, go check that song out. It's a classic. It's stone cold classic. It's got a really, really laid back, cool vibe. And the rest of this album is also quite enjoyable. I highly recommend it. If you've heard Rock On and you haven't heard the album of the same title, go get this. It's cheap. We got this one tagged at $10 and it's near mint. So you can definitely find this for less than $10 in lesser condition. Here's a punk rock classic. This is Machine Gun Etiquette, the Damned's second album, I believe. This is a stone cold classic. UK punk. I can't say anything about this record that hasn't already been said. Go listen to Love Song, the title, or first track, track 1, side 1 on Machine Gun Etiquette, and have your mind blown if you're not already familiar with the Damned. Whew, what a catalog, what a band. Here's a lesser known one. This is Tuxedo Moon. This is the album Half Mute, released by Ralph Records back in the day. They were label mates with The Residents and Chrome and a bunch of other really cool Bay Area post-punk and experimental minimal synth and related sub-genre bands. Tuxedo Moon are really unique. They're kind of hard to describe. They're technically, I guess, a post-punk band, but there's like some kind of lounginess or some dark weirdness here that's kind of hard to put your finger on. And I can't think of another group off the top of my head that quite sounds like Tuxedo Moon. And this album is one of my favorites by them. Here, you got the Ralph Records company inner sleeve on that one. And this is the OG US pressing. You don't see these records very often, and for as infrequently as you see them, they're not terribly expensive. This record's only $30. Gotta get that for sure. If those descriptors pique your interest, then peep out Tuxedo Moon for sure. This is the Phantom Pain Act. These guys, I believe, were from the UK. I can't remember. I was listening to a lot of this stuff in the early 2000s. They're absolutely amazing. They also released records under the name Phantom Pain Days and just plain old Phantom Pain. This is really, really cool. Early 80s, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they were active in the 70s. But either way, dates are not important for these rapid fire record recommendations videos. These guys were very heavily influenced by the Velvet Underground. So if you want to hear bands from a later era that were taking what the Velvet Underground did and progressing it, moving it forward, I highly recommend this stuff. This is really, really, really cool stuff for sure. All right, and next we got a band from down under. This is Venom P Stinger. This is really noisy, abrasive punk stuff. We have 2 copies of this. We might even have more than one or more than that. But Venom P Stinger were a short-lived group. But after Venom P Stinger, at least 2 of these guys, Mick Turner and Jim White, maybe even another guy or 2 from this band, went on to be in the band. Oh my gosh, it was right on the tip of my tongue when I started this video, and I'm spacing it. Dirty 3. Those of you who know were probably shouting at the screen, "Lance, it's Dirty 3, you idiot, come on." And rightfully so. Well, either way, if you like Dirty 3, you should go back and check out Venom P Stinger. If you like Feed Time or Scientists or any of the other cool bands like Cosmic Psychos from Australia around this time, you should also check out Venom P Stinger. That's really good stuff. Another really hard pivot here. This is a classic electro disco record, Giorgio Moroder's From Here to Eternity. If you like Kraftwerk and or let's see, high energy, yeah, electro disco is really the way to put it. Loads of synthesizers, 4 on the floor beats, just super danceable, yeah, disco essentially. I highly recommend this album. It's always puts me in a good mood and gets my toe tapping. Here's a classic gangster rap album. Couldn't not feature this. We got Bushwick Bill just coming out of the emergency room on his insanely ancient, as of now, cellular phone there. Man, that is quite an album cover, and the music matches it. This is super, super intense gangster rap from the 80s. This is on Rap-A-Lot Records. This is the OG pressing. Get you some Ghetto Boys if you don't already have some and that's your vibe. This is a classic from my younger years, semi-modern classic. I guess, wow, 20-ish years ago this record came out. That's unbelievable. The Block Party went on to do a bunch of records after this. I think this was the debut, if I'm not mistaken. This is the first record I heard by them. And they were a part of that early 2000s, like, throwback post-punk revival. Lots of bands like dipping back into the early post-punk era and trying to sound as much like Gang of Four as they possibly could. Well, Block Party, The Rapture, who else was a part of it? There was a whole slew of groups that were doing the same kind of thing back then, and it was a really fun revival. This album is Silent Alarm, a double LP. You've probably heard Helicopter and Banquet off this album. Those are two of the most popular tracks from this record, and if you haven't, go check them out. They're super, super fun, like kind of 10th era post-punk, 10th wave post-punk. Really fun, danceable stuff. Great. Highly recommended. If you've ever wondered what Jimi Hendrix songs would sound like with jazz orchestrations and a whole orchestra behind them, get this Gil Evans record. This is Gil Evans Orchestra plays the music of Jimi Hendrix. Does all the hits here. There's Angel, Crosstown Traffic, Castles Made of Sand, Up from the Skies, Voodoo Child, Gypsy Eyes. Really, really interesting arrangements. And Jimi Hendrix, like you've never heard him before. There's even fuzz guitars on here, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and you get to see Gil on here twice for some reason. Not the album cover I would have chosen. This also happens to be a quadraphonic version. The OG stereo pressing is like, I don't know, $5 or $10, something like that. That's a little more expensive because it's quad. Here we have not one David Axelrod record, not two David Axelrod records, but three David Axelrod records. These are the classic era Axelrod solo albums. If you're not familiar with this stuff, you absolutely should be. These records have been sampled to death. If you're a hip hop fan, you gotta get familiar, if you're not already, with David Axelrod's solo career. He did a whole bunch of production, including the song or the album I talked about in a previous video by the Electric Prunes, release of An Oath, and his solo recordings are absolutely mind-blowing. I think Now Again has done reissues of these, which is a good thing because these OGs are starting to get very, very expensive. That has not been the case forever, but it is now, and they're really hard to come by and very sought after for good reason. Highly recommended. Really lush, funky, back in the cut production, just absolutely amazing stuff. Headphone masterpieces. And I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna rip right through this. If you've never heard this album by Idris Muhammad, this is Power of Soul. Oh my gosh, it's got Grover Washington Jr., Bob James, Gary King, Joe Beck, Ralph McDonald, and Randy Brecker on here. It's on Kudu, an underrated jazz label, in my opinion. If you see this Kudu label, drop the needle on that record, because there's a lot of fire on Kudu, including this Idris Muhammad record. That's kind of a jazz funk thing. And then I'm gonna rip through a bunch of krautrock records in the last minute or so that we have left. I've talked about this record ad nauseum. This is the epic Yeti by Amandul 2. Just go listen to Archangel's Thunderbird if you've never heard that song. That is one of the best tracks on this album, but the whole thing rips. Just get this album, Yeti by Amandul 2. However, you have to get it. Classic krautrock. And then we got a whole bunch of Can records. This is limited edition. This is a really great one that doesn't get talked about very often. And a slightly mid to late era slew here. We got Landed, we got Saw Delight, and we got Flow Motion in the bins this week too. Can never have enough Can. Those records won't last long. And then we also have La Dusseldorf's debut, Dusseldorf, where they're from, of course. This is Klaus Dinger, or Dinger, however you pronounce it, from Neu, and also from Neu, we got Michael Rother, or Michael Rother. This is Fernvarma. We don't have this one very often, so I figured I'd show these two since I'm constantly showing all the other Neu-related records. And last but not least, we have a reissue of the Farm album in our web store at permanentrecordsla.com. If you want to get really rare records for not what the OG costs, go get yourself some stuff from our website. This Farm record's up there for around 30 bucks, I think. This is an absolutely stunning rural psych record, and the OGs are almost impossible to find. If you like Blind Faith, you're gonna love Farm. All right, that's it for this video, y'all. We'll see you again soon. Take care.